My name's Bray. I'm a Wiradjuri man. So my ancestral country is a kind of big central chunk of New South Wales. Um, I'm a choreographer and a performance maker, so I have a background in dance, but now the work that I make is kind of cross-disciplinary in many ways. So it's a bit theatre, a bit screen, a bit dance. I guess the fulcrum point from when I switched from being purely a dance artist to making work that's a bit more theatrical was when I was living and working in Tel Aviv, and I was working with this incredible couple. They were partners in art as well as in life, and he was a choreographer and he was a theatre maker, and they created this really fascinating blend. And I was a performer in one of their works. And it was a real kind of light bulb aha moment. Oh, I don't have to be bound by dance steps, not being able to talk. I paraphrase their approach by you can use anything so long as it's the right thing. And that's I guess a part of my manifesto. Also credit Anouk van Dyke. It was with her that I really discovered my voice, literally. Working with her, I discovered that I was good with words and languages, including improvising with text. And the way she would work with this German theatre director, Falk Richter, they would kind of surf off each other. So it was like the movement would surf and then the text would pick up what the movement couldn't do, and then the movement would pick it back up when the text couldn't do it anymore. And so that kind of like surfing energetically between these different kind of modalities is something that I use and have kind of developed my own version of. So I've been spending my time here at the Abbotsford Convent on residency, working on a new work. The working title of it is Gag Order. I think that's going to change, and I think I now know that after this first week of being here. I often do that. I often start off with like an initial proposal and I give it a name based off what I think the work's going to be. But invariably we go wandering, we go like walkabout, off into up the mountain, and you end up in a completely different terrain. And so I think I'm toying with so the work might be called Gag Order. It might be called Monolith. And I've already done one creative development on the work with 3 fierce brown women dancers, 2 Kuri, 1 woman from India, and I'm adding 2 more women to this cast, so we'll have 5, all First Nations, Australian and South Asian. They all have this like fierceness to them, this kind of like, they exude this kind of power. So the idea of the work, we started off with a really broad terrain, a little bit about silence, silencing, the act of silencing, silent protest, that kind, or stillness, that kind of idea of like the way a protester might plonk themselves in the middle of a 5-lane highway, or a sit-in, or sitting on a bus, or like this kind of like the action of stillness in a way. But then of course, in that first creative development, I just made like a load of movement. So I guess one of the things that I've been spending this week working on and thinking through is that irony, that kind of contradiction, is that I'm interested in stillness, but I've made a whole bunch of moving choreographic material. And so I've been spending the week really in reflection. I haven't been doing much out on the floor. I've just been thinking, looking back over videos from the work, mulling it over, walking down by the river, watching the birds, listening to the wind, thinking about country. And it's been really productive, even though it doesn't look like it's been very productive. But I've actually been like having a great time, and really I've been synthesizing stuff. So I've been thinking and working a lot on this idea of like monoliths, like Uluru, or up in Wiradjuri country, we have a bunch. We have Kengal, which the white fellas very prosaically call the Rock, near Wagga Wagga, where I grew up in Orange, there's Gunnabulla, Mount Canobolas. In Bathurst, there's Walu. So there are these kind of like, they often look like a mountain, or they're like, the white fellas will call it a mountain, but they're actually like a massive rock that has eroded around over time. And these monoliths often appear in blackfella stories and dreaming as really central. They're like ancestral characters in our stories, and our songlines often like connect through them. And I've been thinking about these monoliths, how they don't do. So kind of harking back to that thing that I mentioned a moment ago about like this contradiction between being a choreographer, making active movement, but making a work where I'm interested in stillness. Another way of thinking about that is to think about the difference between being and doing. Um, and the power of Uluru or the power of Kengal or Walu or any of these monoliths is not in what they do. In fact, they're not doing anything. It's the power is in them being. And no matter how much we colonize the space around it, you can cover the area around in European modern technology and houses and garbage dumps and whatever, but that monolith will remain, this kind of ancient, stoic obstacle that dares anyone to try and move me. And so when I get back into the studio with my incredible dancers, I'm now excited to kind of come with that provocation of like, I dare you to move me. These kind of 5 fierce brown women saying, I'm going to be here. My presence, my survival is going to remain a thorn in your side of this colonial project. And so, yeah, I don't know exactly how I'll do that, but they're all brilliant, so we'll totally figure that out together. This work is going to be on a traditional stage, like people, audience seated, which is very radical for me. There's a lot of demand from venues that don't have black box spaces, but only have kind of traditional theatre spaces. They're interested in my work. So partly it's a response to the market, but also I'm feeling a tug at the moment, a real desire to go back to where I started as an artist and to return to like real dance, dancey dance, high legs, turns in and out of the floor, get sweaty. I actually originally thought I would be dancing in this work, but on the first day, these dancers, I was looking at them, I'm like, they're gonna dance circles around me. There's, there's no way I'm gonna be this like clunky middle-aged man in the middle of these virtuosic women. So I'm absenting myself from the cast, and I'm gonna choreograph in the outside on this one. But yeah, so I'm weirdly interested in making quite an orthodox work, but for me, that's quite radical. This residency time is absolutely a luxury. There's this conflict about the art making process and the actual way we make art, in a way. The art making process is a non-linear one. You know, I often describe making art as running around in a thunderstorm trying to get hit by lightning. Um, you still got to do it. You got to get outside and you got to run around in the thunderstorm, but the actual making comes in these bursts, these kind of like moments of inspiration, but they only happen because you commit to the wandering in the wilderness. the what am I doing? Oh, I should have been a plumber instead of this moment in the work. But then the way we actually make work in a sector that's really resource restricted is we allow these like short little times, you know, 2 or 3 weeks if we're lucky with the performers and the designers in the space. And whether or not you're inspired, or whether or not you know, the muses are speaking to you and the creative juices are flowing, you have to make it then and there, because that's where you've put your money. That's where people have scheduled their time. And so having this time here in the residency to waste is a real luxury. Of course, it's not a waste, but I mean, like I can wander down to the river and have a think. I can lie on the floor. I can just, yeah, and it's been super productive actually for me to synthesize a whole bunch of these and have really long, beautiful conversations with my collaborators, with Jake Preval, the designer, and with Matthias Schakan, the composer. conversations that when I have the dancers in the room, I have to squeeze into coffee breaks and after work and stuff. So it's been really worthwhile to have just this space and this time for reflection. I think I'm most well known for my fringy work. That's inverted commas because I don't really like it. Work that's kind of genre bending, provocative, a little bit sexy. And this work is different. This work is consciously a main stage, broad appeal festival piece. So that's going to be beautiful dance, like gorgeous, haunting composition. And really, the design is coming through so beautifully. Something that will bring blackfellas and whitefellas together and will have an appeal to a really broad audience. So I'm really hoping that this work is going to get picked up by major presenters and festivals.